Dear Chosen One, the greatest trick the enemy ever pulled was convincing you that you were powerless. They didn't just want to hurt you. No, that would have been too simple. They wanted to strip you of your power, to crush your spirit, to make you doubt yourself so completely that you'd never rise again. But here's the problem. They underestimated who you are. They forgot that when the universe chooses someone, no amount of darkness can put out their light. This wasn't random. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This was a direct, calculated assault, and they did it because they feared you. And why wouldn't they? Every chosen one throughout history has faced the same attacks. The moment you step into your power, you become a threat to the entire system built to keep people asleep. They saw your light, and instead of learning from it, they tried to destroy it. That's how weak they are. They could have risen to your level, but they chose to fight against the universe instead. And that's a battle they will always lose. But here's where I want to take a moment to sincerely thank you for being here, especially those of you who have supported this message with your super thanks. Your generosity is truly appreciated, whether you donate or not. Every contribution helps spread this message to more chosen ones like you, and I'm deeply grateful for your support in whatever form it comes. Together, we're making a difference, and your energy is felt in this collective awakening. Chosen One, you weren't picked by accident. The universe doesn't make mistakes. You were chosen because you have something inside you that terrifies them, a light they can't control, a truth they can't twist, and a power they'll never understand. The moment you embrace that, you became a target. The weak don't attack what doesn't scare them. Think about that. They don't waste their energy on the ordinary. They don't plot against those who are insignificant. No, they reserve their hate for the ones who challenge their reality, the ones who make them question everything they've built their fragile system on. That's why they came for you. They slandered you. They betrayed you. They tried to turn others against you, and when that didn't work, they attacked outright. You've been through things most people wouldn't survive. But here's what they don't get. You're still standing. And that fact alone is what haunts them the most. Because every time they knock you down, the universe pulls you back up. Every time they try to silence you, your voice echoes even louder. You are living proof that no amount of hatred, lies, or manipulation can destroy someone who is truly chosen. You feel it, don't you? That energy shifting, that pressure building. The reason they're acting more desperate, more aggressive, more reckless is because their time is up. The very power they tried to break in you is now consuming them. They fought against the universe when they went after you, and there is no force more merciless to its enemies than the universe itself. But here's where you need to check yourself. Stop thinking you're alone. Stop doubting your own power. That's what they want. Every time you second-guess yourself, every time you shrink back into the shadows, you make their job easier. You are chosen, but if you don't act like it, you might as well hand them the victory. Your light is not up for debate. Your power is not a question, and your path is not theirs to control. They threw everything at you, and yet here you are, still shining, still rising, still proving that no amount of darkness will ever be enough to put out a light like yours. And that drives them insane. Thank you once again for being here. Whether you just found this message or you've been walking this path with us for a while, your presence here means one thing. The universe is speaking to you. If you're done being silent, if you're ready to reclaim your power, drop the number 999 in the comments, a signal to the universe that you refuse to break. Now let's expose the truth, step by step. If you are a true chosen one, you will feel the pull to stay until the very end. Let's get started. God's chosen ones, what they did to you is disgusting. People are furious. They attacked an innocent. Number 1, they called you chosen, but what they really meant was controlled. Have you ever found yourself questioning why you were marked as chosen, only to realize that the weight of that label was more of a chain than a crown? At first it seemed like a gift, didn't it? They told you that you were special, that you had a purpose unlike anyone else. They painted a picture of you being set apart for greatness. But as the years went on, you began to feel the truth unraveling. What they called a gift was actually a leash, cleverly disguised as a crown. Think back to the story of Joseph in the Bible. Chosen by his father Jacob to receive a multicolored coat as a symbol of favor, Joseph's brothers grew jealous. They saw Joseph's unique status as a threat, and so they sought to control him. They didn't celebrate his gifts. They wanted to strip him of his power and use it for their own benefit. At first, Joseph didn't realize that his coat symbolized both greatness and an impending trap. The world, just like his brothers, saw his potential as something to be controlled, not celebrated. Do you feel, like Joseph, that the very things that set you apart from others have become the chains that bind you? How many times did you think you were being uplifted, only to realize you were being set up for exploitation? In Isaiah 55:8-9, it's written, "For my thoughts are not your thoughts, neither are your ways my ways, declares the Lord. As the heavens are higher than the earth, so are my ways higher than your ways, and my thoughts than your thoughts." Their plans for you, their manipulation, was never aligned with God's true purpose for you. They wanted to control you, but God's plan for you was far greater than their limited understanding. When you felt trapped, have you ever wondered if there was a higher purpose behind the struggle? Could it be that your resistance to their manipulation is the very key to unlocking your true power? Looking at someone like Steve Jobs, we see a striking example of someone who was seen as chosen, but was heavily controlled by the systems around him. Jobs, a visionary who changed the tech world, was constantly faced with resistance from people who didn't understand his goals. He was rejected, manipulated, and even ousted from his own company. Yet, it was in those moments of betrayal that Jobs found his true strength. He didn't remain under their control. Instead, he reclaimed his power, rose again, and ultimately built the empire that redefined technology. Do you see yourself in his story? Are you beginning to recognize that the control others sought to impose on you was nothing more than a desperate attempt to harness your brilliance for their benefit? As you begin to wake up, you stop seeking their validation. The moment you embrace your true self, everything begins to shift. Their influence over you crumbles, and you step into alignment with your true purpose. The universe never intended for you to be controlled. It meant for you to rise. The chains they placed on you are now breaking, because when the universe truly chooses someone, it does not come with limitations. It comes with power, with alignment, with the freedom to fulfill your destiny. Number 2, they didn't choose you for greatness. They chose you for sacrifice. Do you remember the moment when you realized that being chosen wasn't a blessing, but a heavy burden? At first it felt like destiny calling, a grand purpose unfolding before you. They told you that your struggles would make you stronger, that you were chosen for something bigger than yourself. But the truth was far more insidious. You weren't chosen for greatness. You were chosen to sacrifice. They wanted to use your energy, your strength, and your time, without ever allowing you to question why. You were meant to be drained, to give endlessly without receiving anything in return. Think of the story of Jesus. Jesus was chosen not for his glory, but for his sacrifice. He was sent to be the Lamb, to suffer for the sins of the world. But the more he gave, the more the world tried to drain him. Even his closest followers failed to understand the depth of his mission until it was too late. Did they recognize his greatness, or did they take advantage of it, asking for more without ever truly appreciating his sacrifice? Just like Jesus, You may have been called to endure pain and hardship, but does that mean your suffering should never end? In 1 Peter 5:10, we are reminded, "And the God of all grace, who called you to his eternal glory in Christ, after you have suffered a little while, will himself restore you and make you strong, firm, and steadfast." Their expectation was that you would keep sacrificing endlessly without ever questioning why. But God's purpose is not for you to remain in a state of perpetual suffering. His plan is to strengthen you, to build you up, and to bring you to a place of restoration. Do you see now that their version of sacrifice was simply manipulation? It was never about your strength, it was about their control. Looking at someone like Mother Teresa, we see a person who, in many ways, exemplified sacrifice. She devoted her life to serving the poorest of the poor, embodying love and selflessness. Yet, even she faced criticism and exhaustion. The world looked to her as a symbol of selflessness, but did they ever consider her own needs? Did they understand that her sacrifice, though deeply meaningful, also required personal sacrifice? Did they ever stop to ask, how much of this burden is she meant to carry alone? In your life, just like Mother Teresa, you may have been expected to give endlessly, but now you must ask, is it time for you to stop sacrificing for others and begin focusing on yourself? Their control over you was never meant to elevate you. It was meant to keep you in a perpetual state of serving them. But now that you see it for what it is, you have the power to break free. Once you stop playing their game, once you stop sacrificing for their benefit, everything changes. They cannot control you when you choose yourself. And that, my friend, is where your true power lies. You have awoken from their manipulation, and in doing so, you've begun to take back what they took from you. The moment you stop giving without question is the moment their power begins to fade, and they will never see it coming. Number 3, the attacks were never accidents. They were assassinations in disguise. Have you ever felt as though everything around you was intentionally falling apart, but you couldn't quite put your finger on why? You found yourself constantly facing setbacks, doors slamming in your face, people turning against you, opportunities slipping through your fingers. At first you thought it was just bad luck. Maybe you were just in the wrong place at the wrong time, or maybe you weren't good enough to succeed. But here's the reality. The attacks against you were never random. What you've experienced wasn't bad luck. It was strategic, calculated, a deliberate assault designed to chip away at you, piece by piece. The very people who you thought had your back were the ones plotting your downfall in the shadows, whispering lies and manipulating the situation. Look at the story of King Saul and David. Saul, once a mentor and protector to David, allowed jealousy and insecurity to lead him into betrayal. Saul feared David's growing influence, and so he began a campaign against him, not with swords and spears, but with lies, rumors, and false accusations. David's every move was scrutinized, and Saul manipulated those around David to turn against him. Even when David had the chance to strike down Saul, he refrained, trusting in God's justice. Saul's attacks were a slow, calculated erosion of David's confidence, and they were designed to wear him down emotionally and spiritually. Do you see the connection to your own life? Have you ever felt like someone was whispering in the ears of others, planting seeds of doubt about you? Have you felt that sense of betrayal, not through direct confrontation, but through a slow, insidious campaign to isolate you? In Isaiah 54:17, the Bible tells us, "No weapon forged against you will prevail, and you will refute every tongue that accuses you." This promise is key. While the attacks against you were indeed real, they were never meant to succeed. The enemies of your soul, those who sought to undermine you, will never triumph in the end. But for now, they continue their silent war, believing their manipulations are enough to keep you down. How many times did they make you question your worth? How many times did they make you feel small or unimportant? Have you realized yet that these were their tactics to keep you from realizing your full potential? Let's also consider someone like Martin Luther King Jr. He too faced a system that sought to silence him, not through overt violence, but through whispers, lies, and media manipulation. His every speech, his every action was under constant scrutiny, not just from those who disagreed with him, but from those who feared the power of his voice. And yet, King stood firm. He recognized that the fight wasn't just external, it was spiritual. He knew that by enduring the attacks, by refusing to be broken by the whispers and lies, he was standing for a higher truth. How have you, like King, faced an unseen battle against those who sought to undermine you without ever confronting you directly? Can you begin to see that these whispers were not just meant to hurt you, they were meant to silence the truth you carry inside? When you finally realized that the attacks weren't random, that they were part of a calculated plan, you stopped playing by their rules. You began to understand that their goal was to make you doubt yourself, to isolate you. But once you saw the truth, once you understood the game they were playing, you became unshakable. The system they built to control you started to crack. Your strength became undeniable, because once you stopped questioning your worth, their power over you dissolved. And now they are left scrambling because they never expected you to wake up. Number 4, they never needed chains. They made you question yourself until you handed them the keys. What if I told you that the greatest form of control doesn't come through force, but through manipulation? What if I told you that the chains that kept you bound were never physical, they were mental? They didn't need to lock you in a cage. They didn't need to threaten you with violence. All they needed was to plant a seed of doubt in your mind. And once that seed was planted, you did the rest of the work for them. Every time you hesitated, every time you second-guessed your decisions, every time you looked outside of yourself for validation, you handed them the keys to your own freedom. Consider the Israelites once more. Despite being freed from slavery in Egypt, they were still mentally enslaved by fear and doubt. Time and time again, when faced with adversity, they questioned God's plan. Did He bring us out here to die? They wondered, doubting the very deliverance they had witnessed. Even after they were freed, they carried with them the mental chains of their former bondage. It wasn't the physical oppression that kept them stuck. It was the mindset of limitation and doubt. How many times have you felt free physically but trapped mentally? How many times have you wanted to move forward, yet the voice of doubt held you back? In 2 Timothy 1:7, it says, "For the Spirit God gave us does not make us timid, but gives us power, love, and self-discipline." Have you ever wondered why you felt that tug of hesitation, the instinct to hold back even when you know you have the power to move forward? That fear wasn't from God. It was from the system that taught you to doubt yourself. But God's Spirit in you is one of power. It's time to stop questioning your decisions and start trusting the power that's already within you. How often have you let the fear of making a mistake hold you back? What would happen if you stopped second-guessing yourself and started trusting your instincts? Think of someone like Elon Musk. Musk, the visionary behind Tesla and SpaceX, faced constant doubts from critics and skeptics throughout his career. People laughed at his ambitious goals, questioned his sanity, and tried to convince him that his ideas were far too big. But Musk never doubted himself. Despite the ridicule and the setbacks, he moved forward with his vision. He didn't seek approval. He trusted his own instincts. He didn't need others to tell him it was possible. He made it happen. Can you imagine what your life would look like if you started trusting yourself the way Musk trusted his vision? What if you stopped doubting your ability to achieve greatness and simply moved forward with your goals, no matter what others thought? The truth is, you were never meant to doubt your power. The chains they placed around you weren't physical. They were psychological. But once you woke up to that truth, everything changed. You stopped asking for permission. You stopped looking for validation, and that terrified them, because they knew that the moment you trusted yourself, you would no longer be the person they could control. You would no longer be their pawn. You would rise. And that is what they always feared. The more you trust yourself, the more their control slips away. Every time you act with confidence, every time you make a decision without hesitation, you take back your power. And now, you are no longer the person they tried to manipulate. You are the person who takes charge of their own life. They underestimated your strength. They believed you would always question yourself, but now you know. You were never broken. You were never lost. You were simply waking up. And now that you see the truth, you can never unsee it. Their power over you is crumbling, and the moment you trust yourself, you become unstoppable. Number 5. The world isn't against you, only the cowards who fear your rise. Have you ever felt like the entire world was conspiring against you? No matter what you did, it felt as though obstacles kept appearing out of nowhere. Betrayals were constantly happening, and there was never anyone truly on your side. For a long time, you probably thought you were just unlucky, that life was unfair, and that the universe had chosen to pick on you. But the truth? It wasn't the whole world. It was the ones who feared your rise. They knew your potential long before you even realized it yourself. They saw the power inside you, and it terrified them. You see, weak people never attack what doesn't scare them. They don't waste their energy fighting something that doesn't pose a threat. The hate you faced wasn't random. It was a desperate, calculated act of self-preservation. They tried to isolate you, made you feel like an outsider, and planted lies to keep you alone in your struggles. They knew that if they could make you feel like no one understood you, you would doubt your own strength. And when you doubt yourself, you become easier to manipulate. Consider the life of Joseph, who was betrayed by his brothers. They saw his dreams, his potential, and they were terrified. Instead of supporting him, they conspired to throw him into a pit. Yet Joseph's resilience never faltered, and he rose to become the second most powerful man in Egypt. How many times in your own life have people tried to make you doubt your abilities or make you feel isolated just because they feared your potential? How many times did they act against you, not because of something you did, but because of something you could become? As Philippians 1:28 reminds us, without being intimidated in anything by your opponents. This is a sign to them of their defeat, but to you of salvation and your security in Christ. When you stop fearing their attacks and recognize that their hostility is just a reflection of their insecurity, everything changes. Do you see now that their hate was never about you? It was about their fear of what you could achieve. Look at the example of Maya Angelou. Angelou faced tremendous adversity throughout her life, abuse, racism, and a lack of support. But through it all, she never allowed those attacks to define her. She knew that her voice, her words, were too powerful for them to silence. Just like Angelou, you too are capable of rising above the attacks. Can you see that their attempts to tear you down were never about you being weak? They were about their fear of your rise? And now you see it clearly. The illusion they built around you, this belief that you were alone, unworthy, or incapable, is crumbling. You're beginning to recognize that you are not alone. There are people, allies, and supporters waiting to stand by you to help you rise. The moment you realize that, everything shifts. You stop shrinking to fit into their world, and you begin creating your own. The truth is, you were never meant to play small. You were meant to stand tall, to rise, and to shatter the illusion they created. And now that you see the truth, the universe begins to align with your purpose. The right people, the right opportunities, the right energy, they all start flowing to you because you've stopped playing by their rules. When a chosen one steps into their full power, the world changes around them. And that's what they were always afraid of. Not just your rise, but the movement your rise would ignite. Number 6. Your failures were never failures. They were attacks in disguise. And now the game is over. Do you ever look back at the struggles, the setbacks, the constant obstacles in your life and wonder why everything seemed to fall apart just when things were about to get good? Maybe you felt like a failure, like every attempt, every opportunity slipped through your fingers at the last moment. You tried, you gave your all, and yet you were met with rejection, betrayal, and failure. But here's the truth. Your failures were never failures. They were attacks in disguise. Every setback, every betrayal, every door that slammed in your face was part of a calculated strategy to stop you from becoming who you were always meant to be. They never wanted you to fail. They needed you to believe you had failed. Why? Because the moment you realize the truth, their control over you crumbles. Every time you thought you were losing, you were actually being strategically blocked. They saw your potential, and they feared what would happen if you ever got the chance to step into it. Think back to the story of Moses. Chosen by God to lead the Israelites out of Egypt, Moses faced repeated rejection and resistance, first from his people, then from Pharaoh. Even when Moses did everything he could, obstacles appeared at every turn. But those obstacles weren't signs of failure, they were tests. Each time Moses was tested, he grew stronger, more determined, and more aligned with his divine purpose. Do you see the connection? Every time you faced a setback, it wasn't a sign that you weren't good enough. It was a test to prepare you for something greater. As Romans 8:28 tells us, "And we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love him, who have been called according to his purpose." Even in your darkest moments, when you felt like everything was falling apart, God was using those challenges to shape you, to refine you. Have you ever stopped to think that the things you perceived as failures were actually the training grounds for your greatness? Consider the life of J.K. Rowling, who faced rejection after rejection before her book Harry Potter was finally accepted. She was a single mother living in poverty with no guarantee of success, yet the setbacks only fueled her determination. Her so-called failures were actually stepping stones to her eventual triumph. How many times have you faced rejection only to realize that it was preparing you for something far greater? What if, like Rowling, you stopped seeing your setbacks as failures and started seeing them as the foundation of your success? You see now that it was never about you failing. It was about them trying to block you. They feared your potential, your rise, and the impact you would have once you stepped fully into your power. But now, you know the truth. You were never broken. You were never meant to stay down. And now, the game is over. The second you stopped believing their lies, you reclaimed everything they tried to take from you. Your confidence, your power, your future. Without their control, you are unstoppable. The moment a chosen one stops believing in failure, the whole system they built crumbles. You were never a failure. You were always a force waiting to be unleashed. Number 7. They fed off your pain. Now watch them starve. Have you ever felt like your pain, your suffering, your exhaustion was somehow being used by others to fuel their own lives? You've cried, you've carried the weight of others' burdens, and you've pushed through moments of self-doubt, thinking it was just part of life's struggle. But here's the truth. Your suffering wasn't accidental. It wasn't part of a higher purpose. It was part of their system, a system that thrived only when you were broken. Your pain was their fuel, and your exhaustion kept their world spinning. Think about it. How many times have you poured yourself out for others, only to be left empty? You've been their emotional crutch, their backup plan, their therapist. Every time they needed comfort, you were the one they ran to, draining your energy without ever giving anything back. And somehow, they convinced you that this was normal, that true love meant carrying others' burdens, that being strong meant never saying no, and that your worth was determined by your ability to endure pain without complaint. But the sickest part, they didn't admire your resilience because they cared about you. They admired it because it made their lives easier. They knew you'd always get back up after every fall, so they could knock you down again and again. They fed off your strength, your ability to rise despite the pain, because it meant they didn't have to face their own weaknesses. Every time you gave, you were giving them what they needed to survive emotionally, while they left you drained and questioning why you never felt whole. In 2 Corinthians 12:9, Paul writes, "But he said to me, 'My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. Therefore I will boast all the more gladly of my weaknesses, so that the power of Christ may rest upon me.'" But here's the key. True power isn't about being the one who carries everyone's pain. Real strength comes when you learn to recognize your worth and stop giving away your energy to those who only take. When you stop believing that your pain is necessary for others' growth, you reclaim your power. Have you recognized yet that every time they drained you, they were only making themselves weaker? They couldn't generate their own power, so they took it from you, and that's why their whole system is starting to crumble. When you began setting boundaries, when you started pulling away from the people who constantly drained you, what happened? They panicked. They couldn't understand what was happening. They guilt-tripped you, spread lies, and tried to manipulate you into staying in the cycle of self-sacrifice. Why? Because they had become so dependent on your energy that without it, they couldn't function. And when you stopped giving, when you stopped being their emotional sponge, they were forced to face themselves. And that's when the cracks started to show. Look at the story of Job in the Bible. Job was a man who experienced extreme suffering. His friends, supposed allies, came to him, not to comfort him, but to accuse him, to make him feel responsible for his own pain. They couldn't understand that his suffering was not a punishment, but a test. Job's friends fed off his pain, just as others have fed off yours. But in the end, Job didn't give in to the expectations of those around him. He stood firm in his faith and rose stronger from the trials. The world around him tried to break him, but they underestimated his strength. Have you ever felt like those around you couldn't understand your pain, yet they still used it for their own purposes? How did you respond when you realized their intentions were never to help, but to exploit your suffering? In the modern world, you can see this dynamic playing out in the lives of individuals like Princess Diana. Diana's kindness and empathy became her greatest strengths, but also the tools used to exploit her. The media and those around her took advantage of her emotional generosity, draining her and feeding off her vulnerability. Diana's ability to endure and continue to rise despite the pain made her a target for exploitation. It wasn't until she began to withdraw, to take control of her own narrative, that her true power was revealed. Like Diana, you too can reclaim your strength when you recognize the manipulation at play. And now, as you begin to reclaim yourself, as you start pulling back your energy and learning to say no, look at what's happening. The people who once seemed so powerful, so in control, are beginning to unravel. They built their entire existence on one thing: your suffering. They couldn't generate their own energy, so they relied on you to keep them going. And now, without your fuel, they're starting to starve. This is the moment they never expected. You are no longer the one who gives. You are the one who takes back what was always yours. You are the one who stands in your power, not because you are weak, but because you are strong enough to walk away from the cycle. Your strength has always been in your ability to rise without needing someone else's downfall, and that's why they will never be you. They never learned how to generate their own power. They always stole it from others, and you were their biggest source. But not anymore. You've stopped feeding their lies. You've stopped giving them your energy. You've stopped letting them drain you. And now let them face the emptiness they created by using you. Let them sit in the silence they used to fill with your pain. Because that is no longer your burden to bear. And as they starve, you'll rise. And that, my friend, is what terrifies them the most. Number 8, they needed you to feel alone, because together you are unstoppable. Have you ever felt like the world couldn't understand your struggles, like your pain was uniquely yours, and you were the only one fighting against forces beyond your control? For a long time, you may have believed that your journey was meant to be walked in solitude, that no one else could see through the lies, the manipulation, the system you questioned. They needed you to believe that no one else felt what you felt, that no one else saw what you saw. Because when they kept you isolated, when they convinced you that you were alone, they could control you. But here's the truth, they were lying to you. You were never alone. There were always others who saw the same things, who fought the same battles, who felt the same weight of isolation. The moment you find them, the illusion they built around you crumbles. Their power was never about force, it was about separation. When the chosen ones unite, the power shifts, and the system they built can no longer hold. Consider the story of Elijah in 1 Kings 19:10, when he felt completely alone. Elijah said, "I am the only one left, and now they are trying to kill me too." But God revealed to him that he wasn't alone. There were still 7,000 others who had not bowed to Baal. How many times have you felt like you were the only one standing up, the only one seeing the truth, the only one left in the fight? But just like Elijah, you are not alone. Others are waiting for you to recognize that you're part of something bigger. Will you keep fighting alone? Or will you see that the moment you connect with those who share your vision, the game changes? In the life of Nelson Mandela, we see a similar story of isolation. While imprisoned for 27 years, Mandela was told that his cause was hopeless, that his struggle was one that no one else shared. But upon his release, he saw that there were countless others who had fought alongside him in spirit, in silence, in their own way. Mandela's story shows that even in the darkest moments, the chosen ones are never truly alone. How many times have you felt isolated, believing that no one else understood? Could it be that the moment you stop doubting your place in this world, you'll begin to find your tribe? As Matthew 18:20 reminds us, "For where 2 or 3 gather in my name, there am I with them." Unity is powerful, and when the chosen ones come together, they become a force that can't be stopped. The system they built around your isolation is crumbling. And the moment you realize that you are not alone, you will find the power to shatter their illusion. Number 9, they didn't appreciate your kindness. They weaponized it against you. Have you ever felt like your kindness was used against you? You gave your love, loyalty, and patience, believing that this would bring out the best in others. But instead of receiving gratitude, you were drained, manipulated, and left with nothing in return. You thought your kindness was a strength, but what you didn't realize was that they saw it as an opportunity to take. They never wanted your love or your compassion. They wanted your silence, your obedience, your endless forgiveness. Think of the story of the Good Samaritan in Luke 10:33-34, where a man was beaten and left for dead. A Samaritan, despite the hostility between his people and the Jews, showed kindness and cared for the man. But imagine if that kindness was taken advantage of, used to further exploit the Samaritan's goodwill. That's what they did to you. They saw your kindness as something to use, not to build with, but to break you. Look at the life of Mother Teresa. She devoted her life to others, pouring out compassion and love for the poor and the sick. But even she, who gave so much, was often criticized, exhausted, and drained by the very people she helped. Her kindness was taken for granted, and at times it was used to manipulate her, leaving her vulnerable and questioning. How many times have you given your heart to others, only to feel empty in return? How many times have you been told that your kindness was a virtue, only to realize it was weaponized against you? In 1 Corinthians 13:4-5, Paul writes, "Love is patient, love is kind. It does not envy, it does not boast, it is not proud, it does not dishonor others, it is not self-seeking, it is not easily angered, it keeps no record of wrongs." Real kindness isn't about being used, it's about giving with the right heart and recognizing when it's time to stop giving to those who take advantage of you. In the story of Maya Angelou, she had many who tried to exploit her kindness. Angelou's compassion was a driving force in her activism and writing, but she also faced betrayal from those she trusted. Her kindness was not always met with respect, but she continued to use her strength to stand up for justice. Like Angelou, you have probably learned the hard way that real kindness requires boundaries. The moment you stop giving to those who refuse to reciprocate, you take back your power, and you stop feeding the system they created to use your goodness. The moment you stop letting them drain you, the moment you stop giving to people who don't respect your kindness, you disrupt the entire system they've built around your generosity. And that's why they're panicking now. They'll call you selfish, cold, heartless, but what they really mean is, you're no longer useful to me. But now you know, real kindness has limits. It recognizes who is deserving, and from now on they don't get to take. You've finally freed yourself from the trap they set, and now you are no longer their emotional crutch. Their manipulation has no hold over you anymore. Number 10. The attack wasn't a sign of your weakness. It was proof that you terrify them. Have you ever wondered why, despite your best efforts to stay in the background and avoid conflict, you found yourself under attack? The lies, the betrayals, the attempts to turn others against you, they didn't happen because you were weak. No, they happened because you terrified them. Think about it. They don't attack what isn't a threat. They don't sabotage what doesn't have value. They don't fight what they don't fear. So, when they came for you, it wasn't a sign of your weakness. It was a sign of your strength. Let's get one thing straight. They wouldn't have come for you if you weren't dangerous to them. They wouldn't have tried to destroy your reputation or spread rumors if you didn't possess something they could never have: true power. The weak don't get attacked. The unimportant don't get targeted. But you became their obsession. They saw something in you that even you hadn't fully recognized yet. They saw your strength before you did. They saw your potential long before you could step into it, and that terrified them. Consider the story of David and Goliath. David, a young shepherd, was seen as an unlikely hero by his brothers and the entire army. Yet, when David faced Goliath, it wasn't because he was the biggest or strongest. It was because he had an inner power, faith in God, that Goliath couldn't understand. Goliath saw David as a threat, even though David hadn't yet fully realized his potential. Why? Because strength isn't always visible at first glance. It's in what lies beneath. How many times have you been underestimated, only for those around you to realize later that you were a force they couldn't stop? In Isaiah 41:10, it says, "So do not fear, for I am with you. Do not be dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you and help you. I will uphold you with my righteous right hand." This verse serves as a reminder that your strength comes from God, and no matter what they do, they cannot break you. They can try to sabotage you, but your resilience is divine. How much power do you think they could have taken from you if they knew you had fully tapped into your true potential? Think of someone like Malala Yousafzai. Malala was attacked because she spoke out for girls' education, and the powers that be were terrified of her voice. They tried to silence her, to crush her spirit, because they knew her strength would inspire others. But instead of breaking her, the attack only made her stronger. She rose even higher, becoming a global symbol of courage and change. They feared Malala because she had something they couldn't control: her authenticity and her truth. In the same way, do you realize that your power is the very thing they are terrified of? You see, they thought your strength came from them. They believed that if they stripped away your support, you'd crumble. They thought if they made you feel alone, you'd lose your fire. But what they didn't realize is that a chosen one doesn't need a crowd to be powerful. A chosen one doesn't need approval to stand tall. A chosen one doesn't fold under pressure. They become indestructible because of it. And that's exactly what happened. Every attack backfired. Every betrayal, it toughened you. Every lie, it revealed the truth even more. Instead of breaking you, they built you. As 2 Corinthians 12:9 says, "But he said to me, my grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. Therefore, I will boast all the more gladly of my weaknesses, so that the power of Christ may rest upon me." When they tried to break you, God strengthened you. Their attacks, their lies, their betrayals, they revealed your true power. You are stronger than you ever imagined. Look at someone like Steve Jobs. Jobs was ousted from the company he created, Apple, in a move that was meant to break him. But instead of crumbling, Jobs returned even stronger, and the company he founded changed the world. His strength didn't come from the approval of others. It came from his unwavering belief in himself and his purpose. The moment you stop looking for validation and start trusting your inner strength, everything changes. Do you see now that their attempt to break you was really just their fear of your power? Now, when you look back, you don't see yourself as a victim. You see their fear in every move they made against you. You see the desperation behind their hatred. Every attack, every betrayal, every attempt to tear you down only served to build you up. Because let's be real, if you were truly weak, they wouldn't have wasted their time. They only fight what threatens them. And you are a walking threat to everything they stand for. So let them watch. Let them witness what happens when a chosen one refuses to be destroyed. Let them see the power they tried to silence become louder than ever. Because the attack was never about breaking you. It was about stopping you before you realized you could never be broken in the first place. Number 11. They keep you broken because your power threatens their entire system. Have you ever wondered why, despite your efforts to simply survive, the world around you keeps knocking you down? Every betrayal, every obstacle, every struggle, it all seems designed to keep you from realizing your full potential. But what if I told you that all of this wasn't just about you? It wasn't about your pain, your setbacks, or your challenges. It was about control. The system doesn't fear the ordinary. It fears those who can't be controlled, those who think differently, who question the narrative, and who refuse to follow the script. People like you. They didn't want you to rise because a chosen one who is distracted, self-doubting, and exhausted is no threat to them. But they were wrong. Your power was never meant to be suppressed. It was always meant to break free. You were supposed to struggle, stay preoccupied with chaos, and never fully wake up. The moment you did, the moment you saw through their distractions and lies, their entire system would fall apart. And that's exactly what they feared. In 1 John 4:4, we are reminded, "You, dear children, are from God and have overcome them, because the one who is in you is greater than the one who is in the world." You were never meant to be defeated. The truth is, every attempt to break you was simply a reflection of the power you carry within. They kept you distracted with betrayals, toxic cycles, and people who fed your insecurities. Why? So you would stay small, never realizing that the power to change everything was always within you. What if every moment of struggle was just a tool to keep you from the freedom you deserve? Look at the example of Rosa Parks. Her refusal to give up her seat was a single act that threatened an entire system of segregation. She wasn't fighting just for herself. She was fighting to dismantle a system that sought to keep people oppressed. Rosa was not a weak woman. She was a woman who realized that breaking free from the system started with the simple act of standing her ground. How often have you, too, felt like you were pushed to the limit, only to realize that the system was terrified of your willingness to stand firm? What they didn't understand is that a chosen one doesn't need validation from others to be powerful. A chosen one doesn't need the approval of a broken system to rise. And when you started questioning their lies, when you began to walk your own path, you started to see the cracks in the system. Every lie they threw at you, every attempt to isolate you, only revealed your true strength. Because a chosen one doesn't fold under pressure. They become indestructible because of it. In Philippians 4:13, it says, "I can do all things through him who gives me strength." The strength you need is already within you. It was never about the validation they offered. It was about recognizing the power that God placed inside you. They wanted you to feel small, to chase approval, but the moment you stopped looking outside for validation, you realized that you had everything you needed to succeed. Consider the example of the late Maya Angelou. She lived a life of immense personal struggles, but overcame them to become one of the most powerful voices for freedom and justice. Angelou was not a woman of fragility. She was a woman who understood her own power and used it to uplift others. Every betrayal, every hardship she faced didn't break her. It shaped her, molded her into a force that could not be ignored. How many times have you faced struggles and yet found yourself rising again, stronger than before? And now they are panicking. They are scrambling to find a way to keep you under control because they see you stepping into your true power. What happens when the attacks no longer work? When the lies no longer stick? When the sabotage only fuels your rise? They lose. They've lost their grip on you. The very thing they feared is now unfolding right before their eyes. You're rising, unshaken, unbreakable, and untouchable. And that is their worst nightmare. Let them watch. Let them see what happens when a chosen one refuses to be destroyed. Let them witness the power they tried to silence becoming louder than ever. Because the attack was never about breaking you. It was about stopping you before you realized that you could never be broken in the first place. Number 12. The day you woke up, their power over you died. Have you ever felt like there was a shadow hanging over your every move, like something or someone was constantly trying to keep you in a state of doubt and confusion? The obstacles, the betrayals, the heartbreak, they all seem to be working in tandem to make you feel small, insignificant, and disconnected from your true power. But what if I told you that this was never about your mistakes or your failures? It was about control. You weren't meant to fail. You were meant to be kept in the dark. They wanted you confused, uncertain, unsure of yourself, because as long as you were doubting, as long as you felt like you weren't enough, you were easy to control. But the moment you woke up, the moment you recognized the truth, their power over you ended. The system doesn't fear your failures. They fear the day you realize you were never meant to lose. They spent years keeping you distracted and uncertain. But the moment you recognized your own worth, your true strength, their control vanished. And that's exactly what terrifies them. In Psalm 23 verse 4, it says, "Even though I walk through the darkest valley, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me." You see, the darkness they tried to impose on you was never meant to destroy you. It was meant to lead you to your awakening. The struggles you faced weren't signs of weakness. They were the catalyst that awakened the warrior within you. And now that you've seen the light, they have no power over you. Think of someone like Thomas Edison. Edison was ridiculed and dismissed by many of his peers. his ideas seen as outlandish and unworthy. He was told that his inventions were impossible, that he should give up. Yet, despite countless failures, Edison remained steadfast. He didn't let the doubts of others define his worth or his potential. He knew that the world needed his vision, and that belief in himself kept him going. His perseverance led to the invention of the light bulb, a breakthrough that changed the world. In the same way, when you face setbacks, you are not meant to be broken. Each one is simply another step closer to your greatness. Do you recognize now that your struggles are part of your journey, not your undoing? In Proverbs 3:5-6 it says, "Trust in the Lord with all your heart, and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways submit to him, and he will make your paths straight." When the world tried to convince you that you were lost, that you were confused, and that you were unworthy, God was there, guiding you, even when you couldn't see it. Their tactics to keep you in doubt have no power now, because you've learned to trust in your own strength and in the divine guidance that has always been with you. Think of someone like Michael Jordan. Jordan was famously cut from his high school basketball team, but rather than giving up, he used that rejection as fuel. He worked harder, pushing himself beyond what anyone thought was possible. The world didn't give him the validation he deserved, but he didn't wait for it. He created his own path, becoming one of the greatest athletes the world has ever known. Like Jordan, when others doubt you, when they try to put you down or make you feel small, your true strength lies in your ability to rise above it. Their doubt is simply an opportunity for you to prove them wrong. In Isaiah 40:31 it says, "But those who hope in the Lord will renew their strength. They will soar on wings like eagles. They will run and not grow weary. They will walk and not be faint." You were never meant to stay grounded by their limitations. You were meant to soar. The chains they tried to wrap around your mind, your confidence and your identity, those chains no longer have any power over you. You've broken free, and you are now walking in your full power. Now, every time you trust yourself, every time you stand tall without apology, they feel it. Their manipulations don't work anymore. The guilt trips, they don't affect you. The backhanded compliments, the lies designed to make you doubt yourself, they are all dead on arrival, because now you see the truth. You were never meant to be controlled. You were meant to change the game. Think about it. How often have you felt like you didn't belong, like your power was something to be ashamed of? How often were you told to shrink, to conform, to fit in? But now you see that those very attempts to keep you small were the system's greatest fear. You were never meant to fit in. You were meant to stand out, to rewrite the rules, and to shift the balance. And that terrifies them. Beloved chosen one, they're watching you now, hoping, praying that you'll go back to the way things were, that you'll sink back into the fog of uncertainty, that you'll hesitate just long enough for them to regain control. But it's too late for that, because you know who you are now, and nothing terrifies them more than a chosen one who chooses themselves. So let them watch. Let them sit in the fear they tried to instill in you. Let them feel the weight of their own failing tactics as you rise higher, move faster, and become everything they tried to prevent. They spent so much time fearing the day you'd wake up. Now that you have, they don't stand a chance. And just like that, the illusion is gone. You see it now, the lies, the manipulation, the fear they tried to plant in you. It holds no power anymore. You were never weak. You were never meant to stay small. And now that you know the truth, there's no going back. As you stand in your power, I want to take a moment to thank each of you for being here, for listening to this message and embracing your truth. You are the reason this movement grows. You are the reason the game is changing. And for that, I am deeply grateful. Your presence here means more than words can express. If you feel inspired and are able to, please consider supporting this mission through Super Thanks. Your generosity, whether in support or just by sharing this message, fuels the journey of many others, waking up to their true power. No matter the amount, your contribution is appreciated, and I am thankful for your support, whether you choose to donate or not. Every act of engagement matters, and it all makes a difference. As you continue your journey, I bless you with strength, clarity, and unwavering courage. May you always walk in the light of your truth, never shrinking, always rising. Remember, you are a force of change. The universe is aligning with you, and the path ahead is yours to create. So, rise and let the world see you shine. The reckoning has begun, and we rise together. Let's keep moving forward, together.